So this is a video just for Scotty Kilmer, hashtag Savage Scotty on YouTube. Um, First off, I want to say I do enjoy watching your stuff. A lot of it's pretty informative. I think I watched just the other day some of the fixes in a bottle that you were talking about, the head gasket repair, the radiator fix in a can, stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool. And what was interesting is I've actually heard that Bars Leak is one of the best radiator fixes in a bottle that has ever existed, from more than one person, so you're not the only one to say that. But hang on. I do respectfully disagree with you on something. I don't understand your hate for these. Now that is, a Ford 1 liter 3-cylinder GDI turbo engine. I don't understand why you don't like them. I used to work at a Ford dealership. I saw the good and bad and ugly of Fords. I saw the good and bad and ugly of them. The worst ones were the diesels. Like you have said, they're just so complicated on emissions. The only real problems that I saw out of the GDI turbocharged EcoBoost engines were when they first came out with the 1.6 liter, they just had design faults. They did not hold up well in the heavier vehicles. The only one that they did hold up in at stock output levels was the Fiesta ST. You put them in a Fusion or especially an Escape where it had the aerodynamic profile difference, they did not hold up well. But it was a design fault in the cooling system. It could not keep up with the engine. Now, in case you didn't know, I'm going to give you a brief walkthrough here. Little 1 liter 3-cylinder 123 horsepower and 240 plus foot-pounds of torque in a little 2018 Focus right there. I've had this car, good grief, bought it August of 18, and I have put a boatload of miles on this little thing. I've got a long commute back and forth to work. I was driving an older Lincoln with a V8, getting like 20 miles a gallon, and I got tired of feeding it, so away it went, and I got my little Focus. It's very dirty and cluttered in here, but go ahead and give you a little startup video here. As I'm sure you can probably see, we got 75,755 miles. I know that these things rattle a lot. It's not lifter noise. They don't wear the lifters. It's the direct injection pump right there. It's ran on a square cam lobe, and it pumps up your rail pressure from the in-tank fuel pump. The only issue that I've had out of this little car in 75,000 miles is the radiator cap. About 3 months ago, I started noticing I was running a little low on coolant, and I couldn't find any leaks anywhere. Had it pressure tested. I had an extended warranty on the car, and pressure test showed no leaks. They checked the cap. The cap was falling apart. So new cap. It didn't even meet the warranty deductible on my extended warranty, so I just had to pay for it out of pocket. I have modified it, but not so much. That is a Focus RS airbox with the Ford air filter in it. That's designed to flow over 300 horsepower worth of air through that same system setup all the intake boots and stuff. I figured if it was good enough for a Focus RS, it's good enough for this little 1 liter. It helps it breathe a little easier. You can hear a little bit of turbo noise now. The only other thing I did was that it had a plastic elbow there. I replaced that with stainless. The plastic one had silencer baffles in it to help mute the turbo, because Ford doesn't want people to know that their turbocharged cars are turbocharged. So I love hearing turbo noises, so I went and put one of those on it, and I can hear it a little bit better under certain RPMs and loads, and makes it a little bit more fun to drive. Anyway, but I have not tuned it, which there's plenty of tuning. In the UK, these engines have been out for, that specific engine has been out for about 8 or 9 years at this point, and they pay tax based on pollution per 100 kilometers or whatever. I forget the calculation for it, but anyway, they don't pay tax based on what the car's worth. They pay based on pollution. Well, due to that, they love tuning the smallest engines that they can. They've got that little 1 liter in the UK with a full intake and exhaust, intercooler, different turbo, and a tune, producing 200 horsepower in their shop car. And so that car is not only rolling around every day in vinyl wrap, but it spent a lot of time on the chassis dyno during tuning sessions. It spent a lot of time on drag strips proving that the stuff works. It spent a lot of time on streets proving that stuff works. So I respectfully disagree with your take on GDI engines. When I worked at the dealership, the only issues that I saw out of them were the 1.6s that did have design faults, any other casting flaws that just come through, which dealerships, they always see the worst of the worst anyway. And don't get me started on the 3.5 EcoBoost. They had a couple little accessory problems out of the intercoolers when they first came out. They were accumulating moisture in high humidity environments, and when you started to get into it a little bit, it would cause a stumble. So they just had to put a drain petcock that when it, I don't remember exactly how they even fixed that. I thought they put a drain in them to allow the water to drain out at high pressure, but it would only open up intermittently to make sure that it stayed empty, but you weren't losing boost. Anyway, but the 3.5 EcoBoosts, they don't really have a lot of problems. The only major issue with those is timing chain wear when you don't change the oil as frequently as you should. Ford does recommend a rather long oil interval most of the time. As odd as what I'm about to say is going to sound, I stick with that interval for the simple reason that 98% of the miles that I drive are highway miles. I've had no issues out of the car. It's got a, it's been a very good car. I get 37, 38 miles a gallon out of it during my normal commute. My wife gets worse fuel mileage, but that's another story. She gets like 33 out of it doing the same kind of stuff. And then when you settle into a real long trip with no stop and go traffic or anything, I've gotten over 40 to the gallon. So, and it picks up like you'd expect, a little 120 horsepower four-door sedan to pick up. It's got a 6-speed regular automatic transmission, none of the dual clutch stuff that gave Ford a bunch of problems. They had this transmission developed in other countries. They slapped the two together, called it good. They also, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, something else interesting about that is a buddy of mine had a 96.7 Ford Contour. I know the cars are garbage, but they had a 2-liter Z-Tech engine that's still in production today. A little modified, a little different, but it's the same basic architecture. Well, his little car made 120 horse out of 2 liters and 4 cylinders. My little engine makes 120 horse out of 1 liter and 3 cylinders, makes a lot more torque, has a better power band, because his didn't, if you put it to the floor, it didn't really start coming to life till about 3 or 4 grand when it could start to breathe and pump a little air. Mine comes to life pretty early on. You can start making good power at 2300 RPM. The turbo's at full boost. And you got a 6-speed instead of a 4-speed automatic, so you get RPMs a little quicker off the line. So anyway, I'd like to know your opinion on this, even though I respectfully disagree with your opinion on GDI engines. Now, the one thing I will say about that 2-liter Explorer you had a while back that had used a bunch of oil, the PCV system on those likes to puke the oil back into the engine. So I would definitely check that if you haven't already. I'm using no oil. I have checked it right before I change it, and it's right where it should be. And sometimes I gotta put my foot down and drive like a maniac to catch up to interstate traffic on a bad on-ramp that's real short. So it's not like it's just getting grandpa'd around everywhere. So anyway, Savage Scotty, Big Smooth, signing off. I'd love to hear your opinion. Take care, sir.